the creator and founder of Horror 365, I want to welcome back all the horror heads to another season of Horror 365. Now, we all know horror is not seasonal, it's a lifestyle, but the Horror 365 show, however, is. In this season, we're going to take things up a notch. We're going to get that fire higher with more guests, more conversations, more interviews, more topic discussions. Hell, maybe even the first ever live Horror 365 show. So, to our day one horror heads and our new horror heads just jumping on board, thank you. Thank you for celebrating horror, not only in October, but 365. As my main man BJ says, it's showtime. All right, horror heads, welcome back to another season, another episode of Horror 365. I am your host, the mouthpiece of the Northeast, Jimmy J, alongside Steve Teasus Roman. And joining us today, a very special guest. We have Mr. Sean Clark, the man of 1,000 hats. Sean, how are you today?
Busy. It's been a busy day.
I can imagine. You are probably one of the busiest guys I know. And, we do appreciate you taking the time for us over here today, Horror 365. What was your introduction to horror?
I don't remember the exact movie, but my parents would take me to horror films when I was practically an infant. And so I think probably my earliest memory of a horror film was 1974. I would have been 3 or 4 years old at the drive-in seeing The Exorcist.
At 3 or 4 seeing The Exorcist?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
I mean, I didn't understand it. I didn't know. I just have very clear visions of images I saw,
Well, shout out to your parents.
Yeah, well, some would say that they're bad parents for taking me to that, but Jamie Lee Curtis would. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I was just grateful because I'm such a fan of that stuff that I had that opportunity. But I mean, the reality was they just couldn't afford a babysitter, so. And my parents were like 17 and 18 when they had me, so they were young.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, from that point on, you started getting into horror. What was the first film that really got you hooked?
I think when I really got hooked was probably, I don't know, I was always interested. I remember one of my other earliest memories was seeing the made-for-TV movie Gargoyles on TV with Bernie Casey as the gargoyle. That freaked the shit out of me. And can we curse on here?
Yeah.
Okay. And that freaked me out. But I think when I really started to get obsessed was probably around 1978, around the time of the original Halloween. I remember seeing that commercial on TV and it scared the crap out of me. And I wanted to see it. And for whatever reason, my parents didn't want to see that one. But we went to a drive-in and it was playing on the screen behind us. There was 4 screens at this drive-in called Highway 39 in Garden Grove, California. Long gone. But anyway, I watched the entire film through the back window with no sound, which even made it scarier.
Oh, wow.
Because I had no idea what was going on. But it just seeing this guy in the mask, freaked me out.
So Halloween 1978, one thing that amazes us fans, I want to dive right into it right now, is filming locations of these films. And you got a show called Your Horror's Hallowed Grounds, where you visit various locations, some of the most iconic horror movies. I want you to talk to us about how and why you started doing that.
It started, I think my first experience was a group of friends and I went to a convention called the Zombie Jamboree, and it was in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. It was in 1993. So at the time I was 22, about to turn 23. And we went there, and one of the things was that the convention was across the street from the mall from Dawn of the Dead. And when we went over there and we started walking around, and this was when that mall looked exactly like it did in the movie. I mean, everything was still there, the fountains, the bridges, the stairs, everything looked exactly the same. And just walking around in there, this feeling I had of I've said this before. I feel like it's a feeling you get when you visit an old childhood home or your elementary school, and you have this rush of nostalgia, but yet you never been there. But in your mind, this place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just like, wow, this is so cool. We're actually here where the movie was shot, and I filmed a bunch that weekend. Just my buddy did, actually, I think, with his video camera, was following us around filming, and I use that footage in my Dawn of the Dead episode. If you ever watch it, it's on YouTube. And that was where I got hooked. And then from there, I had this in my head that was so cool to see it. And I was reading a retrospective article on Halloween in Fangoria, and they were interviewing John Carpenter. And John Carpenter, in the interview, mentioned a couple street names where they shot Halloween. He specifically said Orange Grove. I remember he mentioned South Pasadena. And back then, this is pre-internet, the only way we had to get around was they used to be called Thomas Brothers maps. And there were map books, and you would go through and you'd look up the street name and find the number, and you'd go on the map and get to. So I started looking up Orange Grove and South Pasadena. And the crazy thing about that is the Orange Grove he was referring to was the one in Hollywood where the babysitters' houses were. It just so happened, complete coincidence, that there was an Orange Grove in South Pasadena that literally is the exit you take off the freeway to get to the Myers house. Wow. So I got off at Orange Grove, and I'm just driving around. Me and my friend Darren are driving around looking to see if we recognize anything. And I remember it like yesterday. We were coming around a corner, and literally we were in that POV shot out the front of the station wagon when she sees her dad in front of the hardware store. And I recognized everything. And I was like, holy shit. And we started freaking out. And then we look across the street, and we see the Myers house sitting in the wrong spot, but we recognized it. Like, that's it. Why is it there? That's it, And then we found out later it had been moved and everything. But yeah, that's really what hooked me,
What's your favorite location that you visited?
My favorite location, hands down, because it was just the craziest, most spooky, a little scary, hardcore adrenaline rush getting in there, and just the danger element of the whole thing was the Danvers State Asylum from Session 9, because that place was dangerous. It was falling apart. It was 6 stories. You would look in one room and the whole thing is collapsed down 6 floors down, and at any moment we could have been walking down a hallway and fallen through a floor. And I did at one point fall, a floor gave way, and I went up to my thigh through the floor.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it was pitch black in there. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face because every window was boarded. There was bats flying around in there, so you'd hear them flying by your head. It was, and it was scary as hell. If you watch that movie, there's that scene where Josh Lucas is walking through the subtunnels at the bottom, and he's walking through these tunnels with the flashlight, and he hears sounds, and, he flashes it down. You see an image of like someone going around a corner. I had moments like that in there, and that
would freak me out, man. I don't know.
So freaky, but the thing that sucks is it's gone. They tore it down.
Do you guys attempt to videotape at the same time, or it was just so dark that you just try to just get through it?
No, I videoed with night vision. So I used a lot of that footage in my Session 9 episode. Because I went back to where it was. The one center of the main building is still there, and they built condos attached to it. So it's like it's weird. There's a little piece of it, and the cemeteries from the asylum are still there around the building. But so I integrated that footage in my episode. But yeah, so we filmed in there. The film was in 2001, I think it came out, and I went like a year later. I think I went in 2002, and I believe it got torn down probably about 10 years ago, I'm guessing, and they redeveloped it for condos. So
There's like they do in mostly everything. That's probably one of the craziest stories you had about visiting locations.
well, the other thing was getting in there. They had 24-hour security that drove around the buildings because there were so many people, urban explorers and stuff trying to get in. And so it was like, sitting in the bushes waiting for the car to pass by, and then rushing over there. And the first time we like scaled a wall and got onto a ceiling and onto another ceiling. I mean, we entered like through the fourth floor. There was this access door. If you know the movie, there's a scene where he is on the roof smoking a joint. And there's also a confrontation in that scene that takes place at David Caruso. Okay, so Dave, that was the door we went in. Was that door where he was? Just what an adrenaline rush! And we spent hours in there. I mean,
yeah, that was the first time. How long were you in there for? It was
probably about 4 hours, and then I came back maybe less than a year later, and spent like probably 6 hours in there because I wanted to find everything. And this place was like, I'm not kidding you, like the size of a mall. It was like 6 stories. I think it was actually four or 5 stories, and then 2 subtunnels underneath the ground. Jesus. And it was like, it was shaped like this with a big center, and it branched out. I mean, to explore the whole place took a lot of time, and me trying to find every location from the film. I'm going through every hallway, every stairwell, trying to find everything.
Jeez, that takes a lot of guts, man. I would be terrified, probably. I mean, they could have turned that into a haunted attraction if you think about it. If it wasn't so, dangerous.
Yeah, the money it would have cost to repair that place. I mean, there was holes in the ceilings, where snow and water had come through, and it was in bad shape for sure. It was pretty gross in there, and a ton of asbestos, just like in the movie. They're doing asbestos abatement. I mean, I may end up having fucking cancer someday from all the shit I breathed in there.
Did you guys have any close calls with security or anything, or you guys were always in the clear as a team?
No, I don't. No, because that was the thing. The windows were all boarded, so they couldn't see light. Like if you're walking around with a flashlight,
right.
We didn't have any issues with security.
Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while we'd hear the sound of the vehicle, but we never had an issue with getting chased out or anything, but yeah, that was so much fun.
Did that ever happen at like any filming location? You ever have any issues with
oh yeah,
people chasing you out?
Tons.
I don't know. Give me one where you had you got chased out of a location.
One just popped in my head was I was in Chicago. I'm a big fan of the movie My Bodyguard, right? I don't know if you know it.
I heard it. I never seen it though.
The high school that they went to is an indoor high school, and I was trying like crazy to talk my way into the school, and the security guard was just not having it. And I stood there, like they were letting people in for a basketball game, and I'm like, come on, and he said to me, he goes, you can go into the basketball game, because it was like right there at the entrance, that you can go into the gym for the basketball game like everybody else, but that's it. So I did do that because they did shoot something in that gym. But then, I was sitting there kind of begging the guy, and he just didn't care. And a couple students were standing there, I guess they were eavesdropping, and they were even like, come on, man, let him in, and he just wasn't having it. So I kind of walking away, rejected, and I'm walking, and all of a sudden a side door pops open, and one of those kids pops out and goes, "Come on, man, come on!" And I'm like, "What?" And they say, "You want to see the school, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So this girl, this little black girl, lets me in. I mean, she was probably 15 or whatever. She lets me in, and so I start just going through the school trying to find everything I can. But there were security cameras, and he was sitting at a security desk with the monitors, because I saw them. So anyway, I got to see quite a bit, and I'm walking around a corner, and I see at the end of the hallway, he's coming towards me. He's like, "Hey!" And I take off running, and I just went out a side door and took off.
That's like right out of an '80s movie right there.
Yeah, yeah. There's been things like that where like just recently we did. I did Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, and we snuck into the stage. They have like an amphitheater where there was a scene in the film where Kiss fights these samurai guys on a stage. And it's the same stage they used in, I think, for the Battle of the Bands in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. They also used it in Spinal Tap, the one where they're doing the Jazz Odyssey thing, and the guy sitting in the front going like this, thumbs down. That was at Magic Mountain. So we snuck into that amphitheater area and got up on the stage and all this stuff. And as we were walking out, a security guy was coming, and we took off running, went out the other way. That kind of stuff happens all the time.
You get that adrenaline rush when that happens too.
Yeah, it's always better to not ask permission and just, claim ignorance. Yeah. Like, "Oh, I didn't know. I thought, oh, I'm sorry," because if you ask, they'll always say no.
Did you find that like once YouTube came out in like, early 2000s, did you automatically see that as a platform for you to continue this journey, or it just organically kind of just...
No, that was a huge mistake on my part. It was a huge mistake because
you were ahead of your time, and then
well, I mean, I was, as far as this stuff's concerned, and I was the only guy really doing it. My stuff was on Blu-ray and DVD and all this stuff. And I was kind of like, I wanted to keep it special. I was doing all the bonus feature stuff for like Scream Factory and stuff like that. But at the same time, I was trying to get Horror's Hallowed Grounds picked up as a show. Like I was pitching it to networks. I got real close, like 2 times, got real close. In fact, one time they said it was a done deal. It was through Sony Lionsgate, and they were doing they were involved with, what channel it was. It might've been like FearNet or something. I can't remember, but they were in. I had meetings at Lionsgate. Everything was going great. And then suddenly it was like, I didn't hear anything, and I'm making calls, and I'm like, well, is Steve there? And they're like, oh, Steve's no longer with the company. I'm like, oh shit. Like the guy who wanted it is suddenly gone. And then there was another time just before COVID, oddly enough, that somebody approached me to do it as a series. And at that point, I was just like, I had pretty much given up on that. And so I signed a deal for like a 12-month exclusivity, and they were going to get behind it for a network. And then COVID hit, and that just stopped everything. So during COVID, that's when I was like, you know what? I'm sitting at home doing nothing. I should just suck it up and just start a YouTube channel, start putting everything. Actually, I had a YouTube channel that I created. I just never did anything with it. So I had the spot. So I just started uploading everything. And, because where I knew I blew it was people would come up to me at conventions. There was 2 things that happened. People would come up to me and say, "Oh, dude, I love your YouTube channel." And I'd be like, I don't have a YouTube channel. I'm like, "Oh, where you do the filming locations." I'm like, "Yeah, that's on DVD." And like, I saw it on YouTube. And I come to find out people were uploading my shit, putting it on their own channels,
Oh shit.
It's like I found like my Nightmare on Elm Street episode had like, 500,000 views, and someone else was monetizing it, there was that. And then people would come up to me and start talking to me about Adam the Woo. And I'm like, well, who the fuck's Adam the Woo? And they're like, oh, he does the filming locations like you. So I looked into him and I saw his channel, and I was like, wow, this guy's ripping me off, although, it's funny. He and I are really good friends now. And have even done some episodes together.
I've seen that one.
Does he also do like theme parks and like Disney and stuff too?
Yeah.
I think I may have seen him. I've seen a few of his episodes, but I think you guys saw each other at a park on Instagram. Someone reposted you, and I said, I'm like, oh, I know that guy's face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
what started to piss me off though is people are saying, "Oh, you're ripping off Adam the Woo," and I'm like, dude, I've been doing this since the '90s, bro. What are you talking about? I'm not ripping nobody off. So the problem is when YouTube started happening, I could have jumped into it and probably would have had the same, the close to 1 million followers he has. But unfortunately, I thought to myself, well, I wanted to get picked up as a series. I thought there was potential to make money. This is before I knew you could make money with YouTube too. You know what I mean? So I thought, well, if I put it all up there for free, who's going to pay me to do it? Live and you learn.
You've been doing that for a long time. You mentioned conventions. Switch gears a little bit. You represent you have an extensive list of clientele. For those that don't know, are there any like funny or crazy stories you could talk about or tell the fans about experiences with some of the horror celebrities that you deal with?
Oh God, there's tons of crazy stories and funny stories, and I mean, I don't even know where to begin, man. I don't know. It's crazy stuff happening all the time. I mean, it's a wild. It's definitely I should write a book someday. It's pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, we've seen a lot of, you even said like in 1993, you were going to a lot of these shows. From 1993 to the early 2000s, it must have just like blew up by like so much, where I'm trying to imagine like what a con in 1993 looked like versus the early 2000s, where I think horror conventions really started to become a staple for everyone.
Well, I started going to them in '88. That's when
it was around that long. I didn't even know they had conventions.
Yeah, back then, as far as I know, the only real horror conventions that were around was Fangoria Weekend of Horrors. They used to do an LA show, and then they would do a New York show. I think they did a Chicago show at some point in there. But also Chiller Theater, which is still around. They started around that time too, I believe. But again, no internet. If you don't know about it, I mean, as far as we were concerned, me and my friends, a horror convention happened once a year in LA, and that was it. So to us, it's crazy because it's hard to wrap your head around what it used to be like, because for us, it was like Christmas, man. Me and my friends looked forward to going to the Fangoria convention in LA more than anything in the world. Like, we would plan our entire year and save up to go to the, once a year. We'd get a hotel room. 6 of us would cram in one hotel room. We're sleeping on the floors. It was a big party. It was so much fun. And the Pittsburgh thing, Zombie Jamboree, I don't even know how we found out about it. Maybe there was an ad in Fangoria magazine for it. I don't even know how we found out. But it was that was our first like trip outside of California to go to something else. As far as the conventions looked pretty much the way they look now. I mean, the only difference was the only real difference was obviously, like, when we started going, nobody charged for autographs.
Oh wow.
And usually the talent that was there it was studio obligations to promote a new film or something. They would be there, and they would do like a free signing, or they would just pay maybe they paid a celebrity $1,000 and they signed for the weekend. You know, it was probably something like that. Not until that Pittsburgh show was the first time a celebrity ever charged me. And that was, I remember David Prowse and Adam West were the ones that were charging. And I remember it being like, what the fuck? You want
Like, they actually
$20?
charge?
Yeah. You know, and then as the internet happened and eBay happened, autograph dealers started to happen. And then they would go to these shows. I remember seeing them in the early days. I remember there was this one dude that we hated this guy. We'd always see him. He had a briefcase. He'd always see him walking around with his briefcase, and he'd walk up to the celebrity's table, open up the briefcase, pull out picture, and the person would just sign it. Like there was nobody there saying limit. They would just sign it, sign it. And we're sitting there going, come on, dude. You know, we're waiting in line. You're throwing down 100 things, you know? And then once celebrities started seeing their stuff being sold online, that's when the whole, well, we need to charge for this because somebody else is making money off of it. And eBay and the internet changed the landscape of conventions because of that, you know, because they could actually see the value of their signature. Oh, look, these people are buying it for this much money online, you know. Now, and the other big thing was for us as fans, the vendors were everything, man, because now where you could, you know, just go online, type in what you want, find it, and there's tons of merchandise. Back in the day, there was shit for merchandise for horror films. Right. I mean, almost everything you bought, whether it be a t-shirt or a resin kit, it was all bootleg. It was all fan made. But then, you know, so you'd sit there scouring through boxes and looking through, you know, trying to find cool merchandise. And I miss those days, man. I miss that. The internet has taken the fun out of, you know, the going out and like digging through stuff. You know, that was so much fun.
Everything's changed. I miss video stores too. You know, everything's streaming now. The experience about just walking into a video store.
Yeah, reading the backs of the boxes and seeing, oh, what's this movie about, and taking your time. And that was, you know, same with record stores when you pull out an album and you look at the artwork and you know, that is, I mean, you can still do that, you know, with record stores at least, you know, but for the most part, it's gone, man. I mean, that feeling of the hunt is gone, you know.
The hunt, and it's like,
it used to be an event. Like you used to go to a music store and buy 1 or 2 CDs, and that was like the thing. And you would listen to the shit out of that music for the whole weekend or every track, and you would enjoy it. And I remember just opening up booklets and enjoying every little page of the artwork. And now, unfortunately, things are so accessible.
Yeah,
you lose that passion and that love, like you said, the hunt. And that's why, you know, that's why I love horror conventions, because there is still that touch of nostalgia, and there's an element of surprise. You don't know what you're walking into. And like you said before, like Chiller Theater, you know, I live in Jersey, and it originated in my town, and now it's, you know, in a couple of towns over in Jersey, but that's been around for 30 years. But the whole buildup and getting your friends together and just planning something out is what's fun about that. You know, like I love seeing the celebrities, but just walking around and just doing circles around and, you know, meeting people that you know, and just finding that gem, you know, like you found this nostalgic record or anything, you know, it's something special that, like you said, I think online has destroyed that for us.
Yeah, and there's very few vendors these days that get me excited, you know, that you know, you walk through a convention and it's like all the same shit, like pop figures and, you know, Trick or Treat Studios masks and this. I mean, you know, not to take anything away, I think Trick or Treat Studios is awesome. They're giving the fans so much cool shit, but it's just like back in the day, man, finding those like this killer fan made mask that, you know, or you know,
it's the originality in it.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean, like the resin kit industry is pretty much dead. I mean, back in the day, if you wanted a figure of an obscure horror character, you'd have to get some shitty resin model kit, take it home, glue it together, sand it down, paint it. You know,
You have to be a
now you can
sculptor.
buy. What's that?
You have to be a sculptor. You
Yeah.
have to know
Well,
about
nowadays you can find action figures that are 10 times better than those resin kits. And the resin kits used to be like $100. You know, now you're paying $39.99 for a killer boxed figure, you know. And
I mean,
it's
what do you
it's and it's
think?
crazy the stuff that's coming out that you would have never thought in a million years would get released, you know.
The convention scene doesn't change much, as you said, except for pricing. But thinking about it, Sean, you've been going to conventions a long time. What do
Mm.
you think could be added to make like the fans' experience more memorable?
I don't know, man. It's I see shows trying, you know, I see shows trying new things. You know, like this, I was just at Creepy Con this weekend in Ontario, California, and they had a little retro arcade there. They had a walk-through haunt. You know,
Oh,
they had a horror speed dating thing they did.
that's
I mean,
awesome.
they're trying different things, you know, which I'm cool with. You know, give the fans a little extra experience.
I mean, I did. I spoke to you about it a while ago. The Silver Stream Con. You know, Spencer.
Hmm.
They did a fucking awesome concert after that con where it was they played for 800 people. So I think that's their attempt to really take that to the next level and really have that bring back that intimacy back to the shows. The thing that Jimmy and I were talking about is we've noticed even this year going forward, like there's such a resurgence, and also all of a sudden I feel like cons are just exploding this year. Where maybe Monster Mania used to be once every 6 months, Chiller was once every 6 months. Now I feel like they're happening once every 3 months almost, like, or a new con is popping up.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, for you as an industry guy, I think that's a awesome opportunity. But as
Mm,
do you see that as a challenge, like trying to stay fresh and like how do you keep
Like
the
an
appeal all the
oversaturation.
time? And, right. Is it oversaturating the market, or is it good for horror? Like, do you find that a challenge? Like, do you feel like you're spread thin at times?
absolutely. I think it's definitely oversaturated right now.
Right.
There's too many shows, uh, and you know the cream is always going to rise. But the problem is, guys like me get bogged down with all these brand new little shows popping up, reaching out, trying to book our clients, and we have no clue if anybody's going to show up to them. We have no idea if they're worthwhile. And, you know, the only way we can protect ourselves is by having guarantees put in place and stuff like that. But then you don't even know if these people have the money to pay those guarantees, you know, so then you have to ask for money up front or stuff like that, you know, which makes it difficult on the promoter. But also, if you don't have the money to pay the talent, you shouldn't be booking the talent. You know, I mean, that's if you don't have the money, if you're relying on ticket sales to be able to pay those things off, you're rolling the dice, man. And I can't, as an agent, I can't take that chance with my clients, because if at the end of the weekend you're in the corner on your knees crying, begging for forgiveness, that my client doesn't care about that. They're looking at me like, Sean, you said I'm guaranteed this much. You know,
Right.
only one time in my life have I been, well, it's happened twice, but only one. I mean, one time there was a show in Virginia Beach. I think it was called Blood on the Beach, uh, where the guy, you know, didn't have the money, and you know, here's the thing, I guaranteed my clients X amount, so I paid them out of my pocket. I paid them, you know. I said, look, I made you this guarantee, you're going to get paid, so don't worry. And I'm the one who ate it, you know, but that's, my reputation was more important. um but you know, I obviously pursued it. That's probably the only time I've ever really gotten burned. I mean, there was the big Walker Stalker debacle. A lot of people heard a lot about that. But that guy actually paid us. It took him 2 years, but he paid us. So, you know, I give him props for following through. He came through. And that was a significant amount of money. I mean, that was like between all my clients and myself, he owed like 180,000.
Oh,
So
Jesus. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
he paid it. So, I give him a ton of credit. But yeah, so yes, I kind of went on a tangent there, but yes, it's getting oversaturated. There's all these shows popping up, and most of them are garbage. I got to be honest with you. I mean, they really are. A lot. I'm not going to say any names, even though I'm not a fan of this particular promoter, but there's one show in particular who's just, they're adding cities like crazy, and their shows are not good. None of them are good. I mean, there's some that are okay, but they're trying to build perception. You know what I mean? Like, look at us. We're in this city and this city and this city and this city. And it's like, dude, yeah, but your show sucks in all those cities, So
They're trying to see, which city is going to do them, the best.
yeah. And then they stop doing those cities because they're terrible. Then they go back to those cities. Then they cancel. They postpone shows for a year because we know they're not selling tickets, but they'll make up some bullshit excuse. But I don't work with them. So, but I'm just saying that there's people like that out there that try to create the appearance that they're a big deal when they're not. You know what I mean? People look at a show like that and they go to their website and they say, "Oh wow, they're in like 5, 6 different cities. They must be a big deal." They're trying to create the perception that they're a big deal, but they're not. So there's just a lot of, like I said, there's just a lot of bad shows out there, and usually they don't last more than a year, or sometimes they'll drag it out for a little while. But then you see this. I don't want to call out any specific guests, but you can see the quality of the show by the guest list. I mean, you'll see the same suspects at every show. Okay, I'll throw
that
one.
Aggravates me.
Tony Moran. If Tony Moran's at your show, it's probably not very good. All right.
Oh, gee.
So
yeah, that's one thing too. Like, you have to have diversity, man. You can't have the same guest at every show.
No.
If you're finding yourself having to do that, then you shouldn't have a show either. And
the problem is, as the promoter, you're gonna take who you can get for free. Who's gonna come at no guarantee? Who's gonna come for maybe just a table? Who's gonna come for maybe just a table in a hotel room and get themselves there? That's the type of quality of guest you start seeing at these shows, and you immediately know out the gate. When I get a show contact me and say, "Oh, we'd love to get Matthew Lillard," and I look at their guest list and it's X, Y, and Z. It's like, are you kidding me? I mean, first off, do you have any clue what his requirements are? Because looking at what you've got lined up so far, you have no expenses. So it's my job to pick and choose the best options and opportunities for my clients to go have. Nobody wants to sit at a table like empty in an empty room and going like this all weekend.
No,
looking
that's got
around.
to aggravate. Honestly, that has to aggravate the talent. Like, even though they're getting paid a guarantee, it's like they feel like it's a waste of time, and it could also be deflating for them.
Totally. Like, then even if it's the show's fault that nobody showed up because maybe they didn't promote it, the talent they feel bad. They feel like, I don't want to do this anymore if this is how this is going to be. They start questioning, should they do it? Or, you didn't do a very good job, I'm going to find someone else who can. And then you get fired, which can happen. So
yeah, I'm sure it's a mix of chemistry and, obviously you said it's your job to kind of put your fingers on the pulse and make sure that you're taking that calculated risk to ensure that it's a success. And also, at the end of the day, it's about the fans. You want these fans to have this amazing experience to where they felt like they've spent their hard-earned money and they've had that moment with their favorite stars, and and from what I've seen, I've met you a few times, and I feel like you're like a magician, like you make it look very effortless, but I can only imagine what it takes to kind of just be consistent like that all the time because it's not easy. There's a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of drama. You got to stay on top and make sure that your client's happy, the show promoter's happy. It's like you're spinning all these plates at one time.
Oh, dude, you have no idea. I mean, it that's the thing that it cracks me up when I see these, I like to call them fanagers that pop up, and they think, oh, I can do what Sean Clark does. I'll just contact so and so on Instagram or Facebook, and hey, you want to do a convention? Oh, cool. And they don't understand that all that goes into it. I mean, I saw there's this one guy that popped up, and then I see him at a convention. The dude didn't even know to get his client a banner. And then he hangs up a piece of paper and writes his name on it on the wall, and I'm just like, dude, I mean, you don't even know what you're doing, man. And of course that guy fired him by the end of the weekend. And then, there's these other, and then it's become really cutthroat. There's these guys out there that are just trying to steal clients left and right. They offer them a bunch of shows, and they'll come up to like a guest and go, hey, I can get you in this show, this show, this show, and this show. And then somebody maybe who doesn't get that much work is like, well, that sounds pretty good. I'm going to go with you. And then they leave you to go with this guy to come find out those 4 shows. There's a reason I didn't book you into them. They suck, So have a good time, sitting alone and if the show doesn't cancel before you even get to it, I mean, and that kind of stuff is really souring a lot of people. And, there's a lot of celebrities who they have one bad experience like that and they're done. They're like, I'll never do that again. I'm not going to say who these people are, but there's a couple actors from a specific film that somebody got to, and this, mind you, this is a film that's pretty hot. And if I had put them out there, they would be killing it right now. But they got screwed over royal by this guy, and it left a bad taste in their mouth. And they don't even, if you reach out to them and ask it, they'll friggin' block you. That's how anti they are about conventions or autograph signings or anything. And it's like, man, you just ruined it for every fan of that movie,
Yeah.
What happened with that situation?
Well, in that situation, the person did a private signing with them, took advantage of them and gave them like ridiculously low amounts per autograph. Like, somebody that should have probably gotten $20 a signature for a private signing, he gave them like $5. Oh. And then booked them into a show without even telling them, and just like assuming it was okay. And then people started telling him, hey, I'll see you at this convention. Like fans would be online and be like, what are you talking about? Oh, you're booked for this show. No, I'm not. You're on the website. And then, so they freaked out and called the guy and fired him. And, it just turned into this big ordeal. And now they don't want to talk to anybody about it,
I do think, to your point before, I think that people, it's a great idea to actually put money down for talent. I can tell you straightforward, Sean. I've had a couple events that were successful. We had an issue, not really going to get into it, but we had an issue December with an event, and you learn a lot. You learn a lot from doing these things, and we're relatively new in the scene, so we learn from that. Moving forward, you don't make that same mistake. But to your point, that's a great idea to pay for things up front. It makes gives the talent security, gives you security, the agent, everybody else involved. And that's probably a smart move for most people.
Well,
to start moving forward.
you just don't want to dig yourself a hole. I mean, it's, the guy from Walker Stalker dug himself a hole. It got to the point where he was selling tickets for his next show to pay off the one before, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And the hole got deeper and deeper to where, he was counting on this one show to be this massive success, and it ended up not being, and that's when he just, the floor fell out from under him. And, and that's the other thing. I mean, I told that guy, the guy from Walker Stalker, he started popping up shows everywhere. I mean, dude, Australia, Melbourne,
Wow.
Sydney, Germany, London, North Carolina, Dallas, Portland. I mean, every city. And I'm like, bro, pump the brakes, man. I concentrate on the good shows. His Chicago show was killer. His Atlanta show was killer. Build up a couple other ones. His New Jersey show was killer. Focus on those and keep those strong, and maybe add another one here and there. Like his London show was killer. His London show was off the charts, and that made him really, his eyes got wide. And his, he was crushing it. He was making a ton of money. He's like, oh, this is the biggest show in the world, on TV. So he just starts booking and signing contracts. And then all of a sudden the show started to go like this, and its popularity started to drop pretty rapidly.
Yeah. You're literally diluting your own demand. You're cannibalizing your own business because you're diversifying and bringing it to markets that don't really need it. So you have to really know, fingers on the pulse, like what's hot, and I've seen it too. Like, there's been Jersey's hot. Jimmy, you live in Pennsylvania. I feel like that's a new up and coming area. Atlanta seems like it's getting hot too. So you got to really know your demographic and really know who's. I feel like people on the East Coast, I'm seeing the same people go from state to state. Whether it's in Jersey, Boston. I mean, I saw you one time in Maryland. Like, like people are just going up and down within 4 hours because they want that experience and they're willing to make the drive. So
yeah,
you got to know your market.
You got to also differentiate. You got to differentiate yourself from other promoters too. You got to bring something different to the table, because I feel like, like we were stating earlier, the market's oversaturated. There's conventions everywhere popping up. So how can you be different, with a convention? And that's what I think we're seeing now too. People trying different things. Like you said, was it CreepyCon?
Mm-hmm.
Was it? Yeah, they were trying those haunts and horror speed dating. That had to be horrific for some people.
I feel like the recipe is almost going back to square one. Like keeping it simple, but keeping it intimate. Keeping it to the core of why we're all here. You know what I mean? That interaction, that one-on-one, or that experience that you don't think you'll ever have until, for a long time. So it needs to go back to the basics. That's why we love these shows, why we've been going for so long.
We need different guests. We need different guests. I mean, the other day, Sean, I know you represent just a plethora of people. So the other day, in quite some time, I was trying to speak to Jesus. I'm trying to, every now and then I talk to God, and finally got a hold of Jesus, and he's like, Jimmy, what can I do for you? I says, trying to get a hold of you. He's like, listen, you got to call my agent, Sean Clark. I said, Jesus, come on. No, what I'm saying, like, like new guest, a little joke. Sean, you represent everyone out here, and I got to tell you, it's quality, man. What you have, and I don't think there's anybody else. Not because you're on the show, but just the names that you have, and how many conventions you've been to, and how many people you deal with. It's just, I don't see anybody else doing that, man. So I give you a lot of credit.
There's a lot of dudes. There's a lot of good people in this business that do good work. There's a lot of people that suck, but it's really about also your reputation and what, nobody out there, you're not going to be able to find a single person. I've been doing this 20 years, almost creeping up on 20 years now. You're not going to find a single person that's going to say that guy fucked me or that guy ripped me off. You're never going to hear that about me from a client or a promoter, because my reputation is too important to me. And honesty is my number one thing I pride myself on is honesty. And, that, you hear horror stories about, agents and promoters, and, I've become, with my clients, they become my friends, cause, we like each other and we trust each other. And, but unfortunately, like I said, it gets cutthroat, and there's people out there, there's clients that are desperate, a lot of people, this is just extra income for them. They're working actors. They got other gigs. There's some people out there that are paying their bills with conventions, and, and I don't fault them for oversaturating themselves. I mean, you do what you got to do to survive. And even the ones that leave me because of that, you know what I mean? Like you're not getting me enough. I need one a month, I need, cause this is how I'm paying my bill. Hey, I don't want to get in your way to make money. If you think you can make money without me, go for it, can't always say the door is going to be open when you come back. It depends on who it is. I've extended that offer to a few people, but some that aren't so nice when they leave and be like, well, best of luck to you, And I know I've had plenty come back and say, oh man, the grass wasn't greener. And so, well, good luck good luck finding that greener grass elsewhere, because my lawn is closed.
Reputation is so much, and it's also chemistry. But just going to these cons and seeing the array of talent that you have, I think you could just tell that they have a lot of faith in you. And I've made friends with a lot of guys that you represent, and I've heard the same thing. Like you said, you put your client first, and it shows, and you could just see, it creates such a seamless experience where the clients, the talent is relaxed, they're having fun. Everyone you represent, like they're there and they want to be there. And that's what I've noticed recently. Like, Chiller, I spent some time with, I spoke to Nick. It was just great. It was very intimate. It was fun, and they have faith in you, and it's like autopilot, and it's because of your reputation, and you've earned that, so, and it reflects on that. You go into a certain room, and I feel like certain promoters set the tone where some of these guys that are pretty well known, or horror icons, they tend to lean to be a little money hungry, and you could see it, and that's a clear, definitive reflection on their promoter.
I'll tell you a story. I don't want to say who it is.
We're probably thinking about the same people.
No, I'm talking, no. Well, anyway, this is about a client of mine, who's still a client of mine, but I don't want to say who it is just because I'm disclosing a dollar figure. But I was with this person at a convention making a ton of money, and at the end of he had to leave. He had to get on a flight because he was filming something. He had to get out of there at a certain time, and I hadn't settled up with like the photo op people or something, and he's I gotta go. Look, dude, I said, I'll get the money. I'll tell you how much it is. I'll give it to you at the next show, blah, 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 and he's like, he trusted me. He's like, okay, all right, man, cool. Out, see ya. And he leaves. The next show, at the next show, and we're doing our thing. He hasn't asked about the money. Never brought it up. I go, hey man, can you come with me back to my room? I got to give you something. He's like, oh, okay. So we go to my hotel room, go in there. I open the safe and I hand him this brick, and it was 40 grand. And he's like this. He's like, what's this? I go, that's why you work with me. And he's like, what? And I said, remember the money from the last show? He goes, dude, I completely forgot about that. And I go, I know you did. That's why you work with me.
This is why you manage. You know what I
mean? Yeah. And it's like, you do something like that for someone, they're going to trust you forever. It's like, right. Dude, I could have walked with 40K, I could have bought a new car, but I'm honest, and so, that's the kind of example, I like to give when, tell people why I think they should work with me. It's like, well, because I'm not going to screw you, man. My reputation is worth more than that.
So we got a little segment. It's called the 2-minute drill. What this is, I ask you a whole bunch of random questions. There's no right or wrong. It's your answer. You got 2 minutes to answer all these questions. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
All right, we set the timer right now. 3, 2, 1. Favorite horror icon?
Michael Myers.
Favorite slasher?
Michael Myers.
Weapon of choice?
Axe.
To remake or not to remake?
Not to remake.
Dark alley in New York City. Who do you want to have your back?
Sean Patrick Flannery.
Best horror personality?
Best horror personality?
Yep.
Do you mean the character or the person?
Character.
Gosh, I don't know. I guess you gotta go with Freddy, right? No.
80s or 90s horror?
80s.
Favorite psychological horror movie?
Shining.
Favorite horror movie quote?
We got this, man. We got this by the ass. I don't know. That just popped in my head. Dawn of the Dead.
Universal monster of choice?
Creature.
Wes Craven or John Carpenter?
Carpenter.
Best horror voice?
Keith David.
Favorite Halloween?
One. First one. The original.
Best horror movie score or theme?
Ooh, that's tough. There's a lot of them I love. I'm a big fan of the Funhouse score.
That's different. Most maniacal laugh award goes to?
God, well, Sherry Moon Zombie is pretty good as Baby.
Final girl of choice? Time.
Final girl of choice?
Yep.
Gotta go with JLC. Come on.
Gotcha. Yeah, we hit the time, but there's a couple questions. You did pretty good. We have Ultimate Scream Queen
Jamie. Yeah.
and horror movie crush.
Ooh. Okay, here we go. Let me think about that. Horror movie crush. Okay, Alexandra Daddario from Chainsaw 3D.
Horror junk food of choice.
Gummy bears.
Nice.
I'm a big gummy bear guy.
Switching gears, I looked at some of the YouTube videos you have. You had a vast collection of horror memorabilia and merch. What was your first item you acquired? And was like growing a collection a goal of yours, or did it like organically happen?
I just started collecting. I don't know what my first. I don't know what my first item was, because I've been. I mean, if I had to say my first horror movie collectible, I'd have to think of my, I can only think of like the Alien doll from Kenner, that came out when Alien came out. My first prop was a Liam Neeson skin mask from Darkman, which I still have.
What's your most prized collector's item?
The Poltergeist clown, I think. That one was like the first like badass prop I acquired and is still one one that makes people freak out when they know I have it or see it, because so many people were terrified by that thing when they saw it when they were a kid.
You have it around?
How do you have it displayed?
It's in a plexiglass case high up, like in a vaulted ceiling area. Like you can't even jump and touch it. It's so high. It was a bitch to put up there.
Nice.
If I had access to it, I'd bring it over. But I'm dreading having to take that thing down someday.
I think last year I met you at Monster Mania in Maryland. And I don't know if you did it, but I think you were at an auction maybe, and you were telling me about like Lost Boys trench coats or something, or right? Was that something that you were looking into, or something? Did someone buy something that night, or?
An auction house auctioned all 4 of the Lost Boys jackets, the 4
Together?
vampires.
That's
all 4 together.
Jeez.
Yep.
Yeah, that was going for big money. You were telling me.
Yep. Yep, it did.
That's the type of shit that this guy likes. So I vaguely remember that conversation, but you said the Lost Boys trench coats. I was like, wow, that's
Yeah, that video will come out eventually.
nice.
Yeah.
What are you still looking to acquire?
You
Something
know,
got your eye on?
I'm never just I mean, oh, well, that's not true. There is a deal I just made. I can't say what it is or with whom, but I just made a big offer. Well, it was accepted. I made a deal with somebody to acquire all of their screen used items. And once I have them, I'll disclose what it is, but it was a significant significant amount. But as far as things I'm looking for, you know, I mean, in this, when you collect props, it's just what becomes available. You hear about it, or it's usually in an auction. Unfortunately, these auction houses kind of have the fans by the balls, and the prices they charge, the fees are ridiculous. It's become a big business.
But I want to go back to convention. I was thinking about something. You've been doing this such a long time. There's got to be something an outlandish or crazy story that happened at a convention.
I mean, there's crazy stuff that happens all the time. I mean, like
Yeah.
the most recent crazy thing I could think of was, I don't know if you heard about what happened at the last Chiller.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Someone got stabbed, right?
Yeah, and I was there when it happened.
That
I was literally
the-
right there.
You were
that
right
was
there
the
when
one
it
day.
happened.
That was the one day I did not go. I went Friday, Saturday, and I was like, you know what? It's Sunday. It's really dead. By 2:00, people are wrapping shit up.
Mm-hmm.
Someone got stabbed, right?
Yeah, I didn't see the actual stabbing, but I saw the confrontation. I saw the guy grab him, and a crowd surrounded this guy because he had apparently tried to steal a cell phone from a little kid who was sitting behind a table, like on his phone. And the guy went after him and grabbed him and was shaking him down. And I guess I walked away. And as I walked away, apparently that's when it happened. And then and it was funny because I went right down the hallway in front of where it happened. And this guy was waiting for me to interview me. He wanted me to interview me for his YouTube channel. So he had his phone and I'm doing this interview and I see people running. I'm like, what the hell is going on? You know? And then, yeah, it got a little crazy. Here's one for you. And I haven't told this story. I was going to tell it on my podcast. I probably still will. But it was Spookala in Ocala, Florida. This was in December, the end of December. So the convention had ended and we were going to get dinner, and it was like me and my girl and Lauren and Elliot from Terrifier 2. And I think Leah from Terrifier 2, I think she was there, and Jamie Kennedy and his girlfriend. And we're walking down away from the hotel to this Mexican restaurant. And all of a sudden, this Winnebago, like RV, pulls up. Like we see this RV pull up, and driving it is Corey Feldman. Right?
Okay,
and Corey Feldman rolls down the window and he's like, Jamie starts yelling at Jamie. And Jamie's like, hold on a second, you know, and he goes over and I see him talking to Corey Feldman, you know. So we continue walking to the restaurant. Jamie catches up to us and he's like, bro, you're not going to believe what Corey Feldman just said. And I'm like, well, first off, it's hilarious that he's driving the Winnebago, you know, this giant, like, not a Winnebago, but it was a big fancy, like tour bus kind of RV, you know. And he goes, bro, he's like, where are you going? He said, oh, we're going to get dinner. And he goes, so are we. We're going to Chuck E. Cheese. Come with us. And he's all, Chuck E. Cheese. He goes, yeah, we're going to Chuck E. Cheese. And he goes, oh, we're going to this Mexican restaurant. And he goes, well, we're going to be there for a while, so come hang out after. And it was just hilarious that friggin' Corey Feldman was going to Chuck E. Cheese.
Now it gave me a good idea. I mean, Valentine's Day is next week. I know where I'm taking the missus. We're going to Chuck E. Cheese.
She'll love that, bro. Do it.
Yeah.
That's it. Done deal. Thank you, Sean. That's it.
No problem.
Do they take reservations?
Of course.
That's
It's a fancy place.
That's it. Top of the line. Hopefully I see Corey over there.
He's hanging out in the ball pit.
He might be dressed up as Chucky for all we know. Fucking rat.
You might do a live performance. So you might have a special show at Chuck E. Cheese. But switching gears, Sean, 10 years from now, where is Sean Clark?
You know, that's a good question, man. You know, I mean, it's funny is, you know, I don't feel 52, you know, but I'm 52. And, you know, people say, oh, you know, when, you know, I see people I know that are like retiring at 60. And I'm like, you know, the thought of retirement has never really crossed my mind, you know. I'm constantly going. And I don't know. I mean, it's, I don't know if when I would quit, you know, I mean, you know, there's another agent, I'm gonna say who he is, but I think he said he's 70. I think he said he's 72, and he's like, you know, I'm not gonna do this much longer. I'm 72, and I'm like, holy shit, he doesn't look 72. I'm like, Jesus, you know, you look great, but it's like, do I see myself doing it for another 20 years? I don't know about that, but at the same time, I'm sure there'll come a point where it runs its course for me, you know, and you know, it's one thing that's been hard about this business is losing clients, you know, that pass away, you know, and I've lost quite a few over the years. And, you know, recently Ted White, you know, and when I start to think about some of the people I love that I do this with, like, you know, Tom Atkins, you know, who's now, like, he's 82 or 84 or something, or Dick Warlock or Nick Castle, or, you know, who are getting up there in age. And, you know how life is. Even at 52, I could fall down dead right now, you know, that I know people my age and younger have been dropping dead lately, you know, heart attacks and shit. So natural selection might just take care of me, might retire me, but yeah, I mean, it's going to get hard when a lot of those horror icons from my era are retiring or passing on. And, you know, I'm sure at some point I'll look at my roster and realize it's time, you know, so that maybe it's time to call it a day, you know. But if I keep cranking, I keep getting killer new clients, and it keeps just banging.
That's what I think's gonna happen, Sean. Knowing you, I mean, look, you got the Terrified guys, correct?
Yeah, everybody but David, pretty much. Yeah, all the main casts except for David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's new, it's fresh. I mean, it's the hottest thing right now too.
Yeah, just yesterday, you know, Elliot and his family stayed at my house because I've been friends with them for over 10 years. I've known him since he was a little kid. And then Lauren, she came by on Monday. She hung out with us here on Monday, her and her husband. And yeah, we've all become really good friends, and they're super cool. You know.
And that's the thing. These guys and girls, they become family, man. So it's tough when you lose somebody, like you said, that passes on. It's like you lost a family member.
Yeah, Ted White was a big loss.
Yeah, that one hurt, but you know, and then George Wilbur last week, you know.
All right, so Sean, I want to give you the floor right now. Anything that you want to promote, plug, anything you got going on, floor is yours, buddy.
Not really. I mean, you know, if people want to check out my YouTube channel, Malfunction, where I got Thing with Two Heads podcast. You know, here we go.
That's a pretty damn entertaining show. I've been watching it. I would probably say the past 2 months. Caught a few with Chris Nelson.
And then there's Horror's Hallowed Grounds, of course, is on there as well. Yeah, and I do my collection videos once in a while. Problem is, it's funny, I was telling my girl about this, I think last night during dinner, that I feel like I've kind of abandoned the YouTube channel currently because I haven't done anything in like a month. I haven't even been editing. I've just been so incredibly busy with the convention stuff. I can barely keep up with the emails. It's out of control. We're just so busy right now. And anyway, yeah, that's really, I guess the other thing would be, I think it's going to be when's this going to air?
March 1st.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it'll definitely be announced before then. The Halloween 45th anniversary convention, Halloween 45 Years of Terror, Pasadena Convention Center, September 29th to October 1st. That is something that, I do every 5 years. I've been doing it since the 25th back in 2003. It's crazy to think of 20 years of doing this shit.
Jeez.
So you originated that show, or?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
The 25th was me and two other guys put it on.
Wow.
And then the 30th and 35th, it was just me. And then for the 40th, I brought in Horror Hound to help out just because I didn't have time. And so they're also helping out with the 45th. They're pretty much running it like a Horror Hound show. I'm just there, doing what I do, helping out.
I might have to take a trip to the West Coast. Never been.
Yeah,
Never been to it.
I'm thinking about going to that show. We got to see.
But it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a big one.
Anybody you can unveil? That's
no.
Gonna be there. No?
I'll be there.
Oh, there it is. There. Listen, I'm coming. I got
That's all you need to know.
I got
Nick
100
Castle will
items
be there.
for you to sign, Sean. I got 100 items here, man. So it better not be.
I know the one everybody wants to know about. We'll see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping. I'm hoping it's who I think it is. But yeah, any conventions, any new ones? I know we spoke about earlier, but any new ones that you're looking forward to?
Well, there's some really good new cons. That Spookala one is one that's been great. That guy knocked it out of the park. CreepyCon knocked it out of the park. Those are two new shows that are as good as the good shows. They are phenomenal. Silver Scream, I didn't go to last year. I was at another show, but I, had a bunch of people there. And my girl went, and they talked very highly of it, like it's an up and comer. So this year, I think I'll be at that one, so I'll get to see it firsthand. And I think they're already, outgrowing their location. I think they were trying to move it already, but they're going to do, I think, one more year in this location, and then hopefully move it to a bigger venue. So that's a great show. Everybody knows the good ones: the Horror Hound, Texas Frightmare, Monster Mania, Chiller. Those are always, Chiller's old school. Chiller, it's one of those ones that's just like grandfathered in, and you talk about shows that are trying to add new things, and talk about a show that has never tried to add a new thing. Chiller has always been Chiller. It is what it is. This is what you get. And
I feel like because I'm a Jersey guy, and it goes to peaks and valleys. Like one year they'll have Elvira, then like last year they had
Cheech Marin and
like
Christy Brinkley, and
it's constantly like up and down. But you know what? Like that's one of my first cons that I went to back in like the early 2000s, and it feels special to me. Like I could just be by myself, or I can be with my friends, and I'm bound to run into someone, and it's still intimate. Where even back in the day, I know you probably were heavily involved in like a lot of the bigger guests in the early or maybe mid 2000s, but it used to be balls to the wall.
Yeah.
You barely even get in. You have to wait online to get in, and now it's very casual. So
Still
I
packed
enjoy
inside though.
it is for sure, and it's still fun. To me, it's special because it's all about like just knowing your peers in the industry and just whether you meet a new guest or just vendors that you see all the time. They keep it's still intimate. So to me, I'm there two times a year, Friday, Saturday. I'm always there. It's cool for me. It's fun.
Yeah, it's one of those shows that it's like become tradition. Like you have to go to.
Right. Yeah, it's a
for better or for worse, you have to go.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, it's tradition. Like Friday night, I'll bring my daughter, and it's just me and her. And then Saturday, I get to like meet up with my buddies. We'll have a few drinks and just relax, and that's it. Like there's no expectations.
Just linking up with everybody that you know in the community. It's a family. It's a family affair, for sure. And you mentioned Spookala and CreepyCon. You were with Uncle Ronnie down there, Ron Sloan.
With who?
Well, Ron Sloan.
Oh yeah.
Right.
He did both of those shows, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was speaking recently. Was telling that you were going to come on the show and talk very highly of you. Ron's such a good guy, man. Such a good guy.
Yeah.
A lot of respect for him. But he said that show was it went really well. He enjoyed himself. Kept you on long enough. I kept you hostage. Three different occasions here because apparently Jimmy J's too cheap to pay for this particular Zoom. But we're good. We put it all together. It worked out well. I appreciate you taking the time, man. I really do. I know how busy you are. This is the guy. It's the man that wears 1,000 hats. Sean Clark, he does it all. YouTube channel. Check out the podcast. Check out Horror's Hallowed Grounds. Check out Sean Clark himself at a convention. Okay, the man with the longest line. Just look for it. Right there. I can't wait to see you down the line, buddy. Thank you so much, Horrorheads. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for celebrating horror not only in October, but 365. We're going to see you next week.